Greetings, adventurers, and well met Master of Dungeons here on the Master of Dungeons Twitch channel, twitch.tv/TheMasterOfDungeons. Welcome to our new schedule. It is Tuesday, time for some Dungeons and Deliberations. I know that on Sunday during our special stream, we had talked about special stream because of it being Easter Sunday, and some of our players did the night off from a live game. We did do some Dungeons and Deliberations talking about what we do in Roll20. We were talking about going ahead and checking out the Jump Gate beta for Roll20, but we're going to wait on that because unfortunately my father's in the hospital and I've been having to go over there and not having to, definitely wanting to go over there to spend the afternoons with him on Monday and Tuesday, going over there again tomorrow. So I haven't had a chance to finish up this adventure that we were working on Sunday evening, putting this in. We were putting in the utter chaos, the holy conspiracy, into the in our Roll20 room that we've created specifically for these Dungeon Crafts created by Zodiac, which they were all Wild Beyond the Wishlight Dungeon Craft adventures created all around the theme of the Chinese New Year, the Lunar New Year. So we're going to go ahead and finish putting that in as we are chat about D&D tonight. If you have any questions, anyone stop by, feel free to talk about, just ask a question about D&D, or I'll be talking throughout the stream anyway. So let's go ahead and start putting this in here then. Let's see here. Again, we did start our new schedule. Going to an all evenings streams starting today, actually. Normally we would have this stream at 2 p.m. Oops, nope, that's not going to work. Normally we'd have this at 2 p.m. We would have had this at 2 p.m. Eastern time, but we've gone to an all evening stream, and this looks like it's going to have to be done. Let's check it out. Okay, good. 7 p.m. Sunday through Wednesday, and then 8 p.m. Eastern on Thursday and Friday. As I mentioned before, we always use the quote that they use for box text. We use it for sidebars. We actually use a single column, single row table to make our box text. So just I'm more comfortable reading it that way. It was kind of confusing seeing the box text this way in some of the first adventures I got in Roll20. That's always a personal preference. All right, we'll probably copy all this in one. Actually, move this over here for now. And again, people sometimes ask me why I put all this effort into putting these together in the rooms. And it's because I always find, for one, you can never prep too much as a DM, but at the same time, I find that if I prep like this ahead of time, whenever I have to run the adventures again, everything will be ready to go. And I can just copy that base room like I'm doing here. I'm actually making a base room that has this adventure in it. And then after I create the base room, whenever I go to run this, like I'll continue to update the base room with other adventures and things like that. That way when it comes time to run those adventures, I can just copy the game room itself and then invite the players to that, run that game, and then I can always delete that game room a few days after the event. wandering monster. Areas of exploration. This has, shoot, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 by 2. 11, 12, 13. Oh, we should have put this right here. Okay, so we have a D20 roll. So that's 1 to 2, 3 to 4, 6. Oops. Should be the last of them. Perfect. Now this is something that it's obviously I'm never going to I'm not going to critique a adventure in a negative way unless I mean obviously this is a very well written adventure. The only thing that I am not fans of is when they put treasure in random exploration areas. Um, and gold, whether it be magic items, gold, whatever. I always recommend, especially with our authors when we did the Dreams of the Red Wizard storyline, to never, ever gate the treasure of the magic items. There's no reason whatsoever. I mean, I've seen players came to Winter Fantasy this last February, and they played an adventure 4 hours, paid for it, and didn't get a single bit of treasure because I mean, granted, it was a new DM, but especially when people are, and most of these adventures, like I say, are Adventures League adventures. Many of them are ran at conventions, whether it be local conventions around the author or the organization's area, or bigger, larger conventions like what we write for Gen Con and Origins and PAX East and all these different larger conventions. I always make sure that to tell the authors to never gate treasure. Like for example, this is only a 4-hour adventure. But this is going to be it would be very very tough for the characters to have a chance to visit basically 13 rooms in the 90 minutes allotted for this section. Trapper. Save changes before we get too much farther. Oh, pardon me, into the table. That way, if we mess it up, we don't have too much more to go back and do. Unfortunately, with these tables, we do have to copy them sentence by sentence, which is not too difficult, but another thing too, that why I'm not a big fan of this particular style. Like I said, the adventure is really, really fun. But one of the things that I'm not a fan of, and I try not to do that myself when I'm writing adventures, especially for publication, is to basically say, okay, here's the labyrinth, here's all the stuff for this part, um, and then leave it to the DM to roll randomly or decide where these things are. DMs have so much to prep, especially if you're running for conventions. I mean, if you're running for your local AL groups at your FLGS, that's one thing. You don't have to you don't bound by time constraints or anything like that, other than the times that the store is open. But when DMs are preparing for conventions, they usually have more than one adventure to prep for. Sometimes DMs have like 4 or 5 adventures that they're running at a convention and need to prep for them. I always would recommend for players, if you're going to design something like a labyrinth, like I actually did an adventure. I actually was called in. I was on our emergency crew I'd written for the Moonshay adventures. We had done the Shadows Rising series, and Eric brought me in. Eric May brought me in to do the first of the 9 series trilogy, and then put me on the emergency writing team. And it was the beginning of COVID, and I had to come in and do one of the specials, which the specials are only ran at the conventions. They're part of the trilogy, but it's like either the special fits somewhere in that 3, you don't have to have the special there to run the Trilogy of Adventures, but the special is there to have a 4 adventure set to go with the in-person games, whether it be at Gen Con or Origins or Winter Fantasy or the numerous other conventions now that we're going to be doing throughout the year. I think we went up to 23 or 33 something. Anyway, so they have so many adventures. So I had actually filled in for an author, went ahead and wrote the adventure, and in it there's a hedge maze. Like a labyrinth, there's a hedge maze in there. And I actually mapped out the whole hedge maze, made sure all of the stuff was there, so that way the DMs did not. We were talking about doing something like this, and I was like, I really don't like to do that because I, as a DM, would not be a fan of finding this in an adventure that I'm getting ready to run. For example, not saying it's a bad thing, it's just my preference of already have so many other things to prep, on top of having to prep your adventure that you wrote, causing me to do more work. You see what I'm saying? But again, that's just me. It might be different for other people. I just very hesitant or very mindful of that when I speak to authors about making sure you don't say here's this space and then here's a bunch of random things that GM can put whatever they want there. Especially again, as I said, it also gates some of the magic items that are in there. And it gates some of the treasure that the players might not be able to access because they can't hit every one of the rooms. Now, obviously, what I'm going to do is make sure that the only rooms that the characters encounter are the rooms with the magic items and the rooms with the treasure. Probably because it's only a 90-minute time constraint, probably even throw out some of the monsters and not even use them. And again, you can do that as an ALTM. You don't have to. Raw means, when you're playing Adventures League, where I play, raw means rules as written, does not mean run as written. So you do not have to run the adventures as they are specifically written. You can use your TM discretion to do a lot of different things with adventures, as long as you keep the story the same, keep all the NPCs the same, and keep the story beat. You can change monsters out, you can move things around, make sure that the players get all of the magic items that are in there without getting them behind things. Unfortunately, there are a lot of dungeon masters that still think that raw means run as written, so they don't exercise that freedom to move things around. The funny thing about organized play is that the organized play is very, very much centered around player choice. Players have way more choices than they do in a homebrew game. I should say, not choices, way more control over their characters than they would in a homebrew game. Obviously, homebrew games, you can do a lot of the stuff that you can't do in the just rules as written, because, you know, if you're just playing regular D&D, the DM can do whatever they want, etc. But AL, Adventures League, the organized play for Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons and Dragons, player choice is a big thing. But DMs, sometimes DMs mention something about it being confining. To be honest, it's relaxing because, you know, I've been playing D&D been running D&D as a DM since 1983, and then 2016 when I discovered Adventurers League, it was like, oh wow, I can shut my mind off sometimes and just play some D&D and have fun. With obviously having fun playing D&D, but not having to be the person that's always making the stuff up, always having to write the stuff, being creative. Plus, of course, going back and writing the adventures allows me to still do that. And then, of course, I do still do some homebrew stuff as well. Constantly trying to work on find the time, I should say, to work on my own campaign world that's been around for, shoot, this year it's going to be 36 years maybe. All right, getting towards the end of this table finally. I hope that Salem, I'm assuming Salem is a cat, because this is the Friendly Feywild Guide of Samsara Salem is catnapping in the room, so hopefully they'll have a stat block or something for Salem somewhere. And honestly, like when you're writing stuff for Adventures League or even regular adventures, if you're writing for the hardcovers that WotC happens to hire you to come in and do a hardcover, it would actually be Salem, would not be in bold. And then in parentheses, a cat, and then the cat would be in bold. The majority of the time, unless there's a specific stat block for the NPC, the named NPC. If you're just using a generic, like this, here is Sergeant Tom. And Sergeant Tom is a veteran, you would just say Sergeant Tom, and then it would not be in bold, and then parentheses, a veteran, and the veteran would be in bold. Or sometimes you'll see a thing, use the veteran stat block. But it's much easier just to go within the parentheses, a veteran, and then, or a cat in that situation, than put that in bold. Now, another thing about one of the reasons why you can change things around and all of that stuff is that it's kind of my pet peeve when players are playing an adventure, especially one that's why I do like running the premieres a lot from adventures that haven't been published yet or anything of that nature, because of the fact that characters haven't played them, players have not played them before, and they haven't been published, the players themselves haven't either purchased them or ran them, played them before, or read them. It's really tough running older adventures where you know that the players have either played it before or read it before, and you can always sometimes tell that when a player brings up something that hasn't even happened yet, or if they're reading along with the adventure, and you change something up, it kind of confuses them, and that's like, it's like, I'm just not a fan of that from players. I mean, I understand wanting to, I don't know, it's just, there's no winning at D&D. No matter what you think or how you try, you don't win in D&D unless the whole idea of winning is having fun. Okay, it says a foul by the Gorgon. Okay. And it says that a cube of living petrified gas. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that this Gorgon is not, the Gorgon is not present in the room, so it does not have to have itself in bold. The bold needs to be the monster that's actually there. So you say the room has been fouled by the Gorgon. So you don't bold the Gorgon there because they're not present. You only bold the names of the creatures when they're actually present in the encounter. Again, save it so we don't. If we mess up, we can have very little to fix. And honestly, keep in mind, I'm not trying to be mean, critical, or anything of that nature. It's just a really, really fun, awesome adventure. I go back through and find small little inconsistencies in the differences of even the adventures that Wizards of the Coast put out, the DL adventures that went along with a lot of the storylines. Some of the stuff is, some of the editing is just a little off here and there. But my wife is a former teacher of English for a number of years, so It's so funny too. In college, I have a degree in anthropology and I have a degree in philosophy, and two different styles of writing. If anyone's taken anthropology classes, courses, anything like that, you definitely understand that anthropologists tend to have, oh, it looks like a nice paragraph, and it's really actually just one complete long run-on sentence. Okay, so we have the table finished. Let's save it so we can go back, make sure we save all of our progress as we go through. Now we have a bunch of sidebars. And we're going to put all these sidebars, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sidebars here. And we're going to just put them all into one. That way we don't have to do a bunch of extra stuff. You can also when you format your PDFs, I'm still figuring this out myself. Also, when you're using Word, for example, you'll note that this, when I copied it and pasted it over, it was because when this was written in the adventure itself, when I got to the end of the sentence, like when I got to the end of this first sentence, if you hold Shift when you hit Enter, it'll automatically take you to your next, like for example, say you were typing in your box text and it went from moving through one room, and then you see it take one room to the next line in your Word document. If you go back up to through there and then hit your Shift and Enter, it will bring you to the next line of your text. So that way when you actually go through to copy that text out of that PDF, when it gets transferred over to PDF, it'll all copy one smooth paragraph and format properly. Obviously we don't really need that in Roll20. This is all one paragraph, okay? Well, there's a couple of them that are different paragraphs. Okay. Alright, so we already headed that. Part 3 death cows in bold. And then a wandering skeleton, where's our skeleton? Seriously? Alright, then we're going to, like this, we're going to place this here. We'll come back and delete that in a second. The reason being is if we don't, oops. If we don't, generally what will happen is it'll kick us out of the quote. So we don't want to be kicked out of the quote. We already have some formatting here already for us that we can use. So what we want to do is, instead of hitting return again or just kick you out, I always put a placeholder there like a number or a slash or something. And you can come back and delete it later. That way it gives you a little bit of space in between if you're putting in multiple things in a sidebar or a quote, if you're using this as quotes as well. So we can delete that. It still keeps us into in our what we use for a sidebar. Salem is not a cat. Salem is actually a tabaxi swashbuckler. actually the Archfey the Familiar. Oh yeah, speaking of which, the tickets went on sale today for the virtual D&D weekend, which is what we're setting this up for here. Let's go ahead and put that link here in our chat. There we go, virtual D&D weekends. Not this weekend, but the following weekend is the D&D virtual D&D weekends. I am running adventures on Friday and Saturday at 2 and 7 p.m. Eastern. I think my games for Friday have already sold out, but there's a number of tickets available for some of them on Saturdays games. If anyone's interested in checking those out, the Saturday night game is actually non-AL, just normal D&D. Like, it's okay that this is here, but it really doesn't need to be here if the familiar's not revealing its identity during this adventure. There's almost no reason to really put this in here. You could have just put Salem, the guide for the area, and then Salem, a Tabaxi swashbuckler, and that's in bold. It's your catnapping, and then in this situation, just explain kind of in your just a little. You definitely have to mention that they're one of the familiars, the familiar, one of the 13 archfays of the region right here, because if a DM sees it, it's going to be, some DMs, especially if they're inexperienced, will have an issue, have problems with not, spilling the beans, as it were. This is something here too that I'm still on the fence about. I'm not a big fan. Oops, keep going to the wrong one. I'm not a big fan of the whole culture or discussion around challenging the characters. Not all characters and players want to be challenged in that regard. They want the game to be fun and exciting. There's ways to make it fun and exciting without challenging the characters so much that you're depleting them of all their resources, making it almost impossible, nigh impossible for them to complete an adventure. So I always recommend as a DM, taking it the character space, taking it the player space, as you're running a game. I'm also not a fan of putting in tricks of the trade, which they had in some of the older adventures, just because you're basically kind of telling a DM, hey, this is how I, the author, would run this encounter. When people need to, learn those types of things for themselves, I don't like the idea of the author telling the DM how to run their adventure, as it were. I love sitting down at a table and running a game, or playing a game, I should say. I love sitting down at a table and playing a game with a DM that does not know that I wrote the adventure, just because I love to see their interpretations of how they do that. A lot of time they're pleasantly surprised that I was the one who wrote the adventure, and because of the fact I usually will go up and try to find some way to complement what they did of, that was really cool, I didn't think that would be interpreted that way, that's really cool, I didn't think that would go in that direction, or something like that, which is really, really cool. I love putting in the time management sidebars. Almost every single adventure does somewhere needs a time management sidebar discussing what to do if you run over, things like that. Alright, part 2 Labyrinth is done. Lucian said it had 4 parts. Not sure when this was written, would have been written at least probably about, let me see, probably which like came out in 21, right? I think. Let's find out like this. Because, let's see, yeah, it would have been maybe late 2020, early 2020, early 21, because Plague of Ancients, the Icewind Dale Rivals Frostmaiden came out in May of 2020. As you remember, because that was during the pandemic, we did live D&D live with Wizards of the Coast. The first event we really worked with them online, and we've been doing it ever since. And Wild Dawn, which came out to that. So we've had Journeys through the Citadel, Spelljammer, Keystone, Golden Vault, Pandora Below, Planescape, all of that since then. So the formats and the evolution of the different the formatting for the adventures again, Wizards of the Coast overall have changed and morphed a little bit. Drinking a nice peanut butter stout from Metazoa called Puppy Slumber Party. Part 3 is Death Cow. Tomorrow night we will be going over the Something's on the Move, DRW OD OD03, Something's on the Move. I went back through, and we went through the first 2 as we were doing our GaryCon prep. Unfortunately, I got sick after that. But we will be going over that. That is the 3rd adventure in the storyline that we plotted the story for. Okay, so what we got to come up here and do is, give ourselves a bit of formatting space. It's sometimes we'll copy something because the very top of this in the format for whether it be Dungeon Craft or Adventures League or whatever, is actually a single column at the top, while everything else is two columns. So sometimes when you go to copy, it will catch that top of the other side of the PDF there. As long as familiar is awake. They've also changed, like, for example, this is how they used to set it up. Here's the archface found, but the shadow waits. This is story objective C. What they've gone to now is you put story objective C as a header, and then you just type in the archface found, but the shadow awaits. To let them know that's the story objective. I don't know why they changed those things around, or who comes in to... I don't like it that way. Let's change it around. It's different every time, every year. This has some really nice art in it too. Well, that's just right in your face. It sees you and bellows and charges towards you. All right. This is only a 45 minutes because it's pretty much just the whole thing. Here's the combat, which is pretty cool. Subset 2. We'll go through and put all of these maps in as well. This is not going to be too bad because it is a tier 1 adventure, so you really shouldn't have. Although it's possible in Adventures League you might have characters that might happen to have a broom of flying, which should not be an uncommon magic item available at tier 1. Yet a Holy Avengers only really semi-okay powerful in the hands of a specific class is considered a legendary item. Okay. For the symbols, this is a bold. Part 4, more cowbell is bold. We're supposed to give these tabs. We come down here and we have sure why that's I'm not going to put this in the sidebar, I don't think. Very interesting formatting in this adventure. have a combat, so we do have our adjusting the scene. Now keep in mind, if you're running these adventures, these are always just suggestions. You will see a lot of adventures, and they're in the ones that we wrote for the Dreams of the Red Wizard storylines for Obscure Devotions, where we'll say these are not cumulative. You can ignore that if you want. If players are really, really strong and powerful and they want a really, really, really big challenge, then yeah, go ahead and stack some of them together. Or feel free to ignore them altogether at your leisure. I, myself, but again, I am speaking as a very experienced DM of over 40 years, I hardly ever read the adjusting scene information. You usually tell how the party's doing fairly early on after the first combat. After a couple combats, I'm going to have a couple combats as I go into the labyrinth. It's a 90-minute part of the session. So you'll be able to adjust stuff. Sometimes you just adjust it on the fly. The Gorgon, when a character does like 10 hit points of damage, you just give them a bonus of extra 5 damage, and they deal 15 instead. They don't see it, but they can still see the monster's hit bar, or in-person games. They don't really see anything other than they don't see your sheet. I like to roll in the open, but I still use a DM screen in person for conventions so that they can't see all the information. But I don't whisper or hide rules in Roll20 either. I find it a little more exciting for me as a DM to have to be more improvisational while we're playing. And making that improv make sense is the big thing too. Not just like, oh, the DM was cool, we took it easy on us. Trying to make it to where the characters don't even realize you've done that is the trick to practicing that and getting becoming skilled in that regard. Shadows. And then they have just one more paragraph. This part is finished. Oh, it looks like we missed some stuff. Let's redo that. More cowbell. Healing waters. Yeah, that's going to be really difficult. I think Gorgon's, what, a CR6? I don't really have it memorized. Let me double check here. No, CR5. That's going to be, that is fairly strong for their characters. If you are using the adjusting scene, I would probably, depending on what level the characters are, I mean, they could be all level 4s, which still is going to be interesting. I would probably suggest for a newer DM to use the weak adjustments, depending on how many players there are. If it's a full table of like 5 or 6, then just run it as it is. Alright, Death Cow Part 3 is done. As I mentioned before, if it's a handout where there's going to be player information and DM information, that's when I'll put something in the GM notes. A lot of the adventures you'll run into, especially if you buy them straight from Roll20, like the hardcover, the Wasi fiction stuff and everything, you'll see the majority of the adventure stuff is down in the GM notes. It'll say GM notes at the top. I only really use that if there's a split document, because most of the stuff the players aren't going to see anyway. But again, that's totally up to you, however you want to do your rooms. Here's the 16 again from the page. I don't know why the page numbers at the top and the bottom of this document. It's so very odd. Not sure why they put all that in the document. Actually, say the artist, they say the village save Sam Sarah or Sarah in italics for some reason. And the majority of the formatting too for the adventures, usually if you have like for example here in Roll20, they have really good separate headers and stuff like that, which are nice. Usually you have a title of a header 1, you have a header 2 that is not underscored, or underlined I should say, and then the header 3 is usually underlined. But it's all good. It'd be interesting to go back through and check out my rooms from the Rime of the Frostbane, Icewind Dale, the Rime of the Frostbane, just to see the difference in, 4 years of putting adventures into Roll20 rooms and seeing how I did it back then versus how I do it now, just to see how much difference there is. It's not code, quote. Ooh. Well, that means that we do have a ad break incoming. You turn that down a little bit. So we're going to take a small little break right here. We'll come back. We'll go check out our familiar. We'll come back on the other side of the ad break. So stick around. We'll be back with you. Alright, we're back inside the ad break. We fed our familiar. She might still be whining a little bit, trying to find out where we're at, but she'll see the light on up here, hopefully, and eventually make her way up here. Alright. That would make it even just use the action to strike it, the gong using an action or attack roll. I would just say using action, not even making him make a roll. I'm going to have to make a roll. Oops. Still plenty of space for formatting. Got a sidebar freeing the herder. And they have there's handouts in here too that will give players clues, like a puzzle kind of thing with poems and such like that on there. Sidebar. Okay, then we have fake curses. I've got a couple of tables to put in here. Seven, 2x7. As we mentioned before, always do some saves when you're doing tables. I'm assuming with this curse, it would actually give you the deafened condition. Since it drowns out all other sounds. But that, since it's not written in there as that way, it'll really be up to the DM and the players to decide, I guess. The only thing that was given out were it was in the early parts, and there was a Teotihuacan's ointment and a potion of hill giant strength as it. Interesting. Another 2x7 table. Ooh. That's a bit harsh. I gotta kill trees, man. That's pretty gross, too. That's pretty crazy, yeah. Oh, let me. All right, and then the final one here. See, this actually is not really legal on nail. Once you create a character, you create your character, you choose your character's name. Even if you rebuild, you're supposed to keep the same character, the character's same name. So that's the end of that part. Save changes. Interesting. Sidebar. We'll come back to that in a second. It's raining. Alright, we have a quick story award to put in, and then we actually have the rewards page. The handout. Alright, that's the last of this page. Again, we'll note it rewards 01. Always make sure to bold that to make sure that the DM doesn't try to give out. If usually at the end of the session, all the magic items duplicate. If there's multiples of the same, only one of them duplicates for all of the characters to keep. And you don't want them to start trying to, like, if they use a consumable, there's only one out in the adventure. That consumable is not available to duplicate at the end of the session. So you want to make sure you get all your stuff out at the end. Actually, this statement is different now. But we're just going to leave it as is. This does specifically say that even if a character declines advancement, it still get all of the other benefits from the adventure as well. What we're going to do with this is we're actually going to put this into header 5. We're going to bring it back to normal. That way it'll close the space in between them all, so it won't be all spaced out too much. Doesn't really matter. We'll have our own handouts for each one of these as well. we're just we're gonna drop these things here. We'll put those in the descriptions of the items. And as we mentioned earlier, this is a split document. Alright, so what we'll do is we'll end up going through and creating handouts for all of these. Some of them we already have, but we'll go through at the end of the adventure and see what the extra description was in there. And put those in those handouts, and we'll get those in there as well. We have our dramatis persona. Oops, header 4, header 4. Not sure I necessarily need Clarabelle in here. But it might have something to do with other adventures. That looks like all of those there. Alright, their dramatis persona is done. And we do have handouts, but now what we need to do is we need to put in creatures. We do have our template in here already, so we're basically gonna copy these creatures into our Hey Nerd Seeker, how's it going? Not too bad. Getting ready to put in some monsters into our creature folder. What we're going to do is we're just copy our template because we want the creatures to have token actions. So we're going to make sure to let's make a few of these duplicates here. We'll just delete whatever we don't need. Stop for there for now. This first one. Board of Canon presents Monsters, the Multiverse. We do want to use the most current version. Even though they have the one from Vogel's Guide to Monsters, we're going to use this current version. I don't know if it puts a token on there for us or not. I don't know if we have. Do we have a PNG in here already? We do. Sweet. Alright. Stench Tail and Death Ray. I don't think the current one in Mordenkainen's has the keen smell that the old one did. Nope, it does not. Okay. So then what we'll do... Oops. We'll just copy it from the other, from the actual page here. Doesn't have any more actions, so we'll delete those. And then it's got stench. I don't think we have anything else on it. Yeah, so we'll get rid of no voice actions until reactions leave initiative, saves, CR immunities, relieve perception, drop stats, we don't need stats here. We'll leave skill checks, drop all the spells, yes, delete. Legendary macros as well. It doesn't have any legendary actions. Alright. So we'll pull out the creature. It is a large monstrosity. Hit point value is 84. Oops. Players can already see it. We'll put its speed in here. 30 feet. Its AC is 14. Update default token, save settings. We will leave these up here on our GMK or in our DM workshop. That way, when we need some of them, if we don't want to pull them out of the journal, we just drop over to the this page. AKA used to be called maps, but this page to take care of that. They didn't update the cow from Volos. I'm not even going to put the cow off there. It's not that big of a deal. Players attack the cow. Okay, you killed the cow. Fair enough. You killed Clarabelle. That's the new Darkling tokens. Let's just use the old one we already have in our library there. How's your day been going, Sakura? So basically what it's going to do is now that we have the token actions on the creatures themselves, when we click on the Darkling, it's going to have all of our, it's going to have its dagger melee to attack, dagger range, it's going to show us death flash feature, or trait I should say. It gives us whispers its resistances, immunities and stuff like that, which it doesn't have any. It'll roll initiative for us. It'll give us a light sensitivity trait. Give us a perception roll, which is what its perception check is, plus it shows us what the passive perception is. That way we can see those and make those checks without the players necessarily knowing if they're going to see that. Of course, we can do all the saves, and then we can do all the skill checks as well. Keep in mind our skill checks also do include the just like a regular stat check as well. Same for the Catalypus. Gorgon next. Use a Gorgon. We have a Gorgon PNG already in our library. Oops. Gorgon, some petrified breath. One thing I do, I do have my recharge. The recharge is really simple and easy. I don't put that actually on the creatures. I just have a macro for myself. That way it does whisper just a d6 roll to me, and I can tell whether or not. That way the characters don't know if it's recharged or not, so they can't use it. It's best to try to do it as without as with minimal metagaming as possible. Trampling charge. Its own trait. And then we can get rid of the rest of the stuff. Bonus actions, no reactions. Don't need the stats. And no spells for a Gorgon. Oops. Gorgon is large as well. Double check. Yep. It does have them alphabetized. If you don't want them alphabetized, you can actually click off that in the character sheet. Got your cartridge ran out. I'm going to quit these as well. Why is that showing the hit point bar? Oh, we didn't put the other maximum in there, that's why. There we go. We have a mimic. just a classic Mimic one. Oops. Actions. First trait is change your adhesive. It's also appearance and grappler. Put no T there. There we go. I don't know, for some reason when you copy and paste something into the abilities here on the tokens, it will not put the hyphen in, but if you actually hit a space, it'll drop a hyphen in there instead. Mimic all finished up. What we'll do then is we will pull the Mimic out. Speed is 15, and AC is 12. There we go. That is how we put together the monsters in using our template for the monster manual. We're going to go ahead and it's almost the top of the hour, so we're going to go ahead and end the stream tonight. Don't forget we'll be back tomorrow going over something on the move. DRWOD03 for our Tavern Talks on the Ship to Board. Again tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, as all of our 2 p.m. games have moved to the evening, which is in our new schedule. We'll see that as soon as the stream is finished up. It's also in the schedule section about us down below. Of course, thanks to all of our supporters, especially our patrons from Patreon. Thank you, Nerdy Secure, for stopping by today as well. If you'd like to help support the channel, please consider becoming a patron or subbing here on Twitch, twitch.tv/TheMasterDungeons. We'd love your Prime subs. The link to our Patreon page as well as our YouTube channel and all of our social media accounts can be found in the About Us section below here on Twitch. If you would subscribe to us on YouTube, it is free to do. Like and comment on the videos, help get us in the algorithm. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Give us some likes, retweets, all of that good stuff. Every sub, like, and share helps us immensely. If you haven't already, click on the About Us section below and hit that Discord panel to join the Master of Dungeons Community's Discord server, where you can help shape an accepting, caring, and inclusive D&D community. The merch store is also open. We have a number of t-shirts in there, some baseball caps, and a hoodie, some glassware, and stuff like that. Any purchase you make from the Master of Dungeons merch store will definitely help support the channel. But thank you so much for watching. Have a great day tomorrow, and hopefully we'll talk to you tomorrow evening for some Tavern Talks at the Ship to Board at 7 p.m. So have a great rest of your night as well. So take care, and as always, happy adventuring.